As we continue in this season of Lent and seek to prepare our hearts for the celebration of Easter, I want to return to the 51st Psalm and pick up right where we left off last time we were in this passage. This is Psalm 51, and I'm going to begin in verse 3 and read through verse 5. It says this: "For I know my transgressions, and my sin is ever before me. Against you and you only have I sinned and done what is evil in your sight, so that you may be justified in your words and blameless in your judgment. Behold, I was brought forth in iniquity, and in sin did my mother conceive me." This really is a sobering portion of Psalm 51. Because here, David is being so honest. He is just laying his heart on the line before God. He's so aware of his sin, and he's so aware of his need for the forgiveness and grace that God alone can provide. He says, "I know my transgressions." He's being honest. He's not holding anything back. He's not hiding. He's not trying to just sweep things under the rug and move on with his life. No, his sin has been overwhelming to him, and he realizes the severity of his sin. And this is really challenging, but so important here in this season of Lent as we seek to prepare our hearts again for the celebration of Easter. If Easter is truly going to be a celebration in our life, it's because we're aware of how much forgiveness we have received and how much we need that forgiveness. And so David says, look, I know, Lord, this is personal between me and you. That's a very important thing to consider. Many times we think about our sin and the way it might impact others, and that certainly is a reality. But David recognizes something very deep here, that his sin is actually against a perfect and holy God. He says, "Against you and you only have I sinned." David knows that his sin is a violation against the purity and the holiness of God. And he knows that because of that, God is his only hope. God is his only help. The only way he can be forgiven, the only way he can be restored is if God himself does so. Because as David writes here in Psalm 51, the Lord would be right, justified in his words of judgment against David. And so David is beginning to plead with the Lord in his honesty about sin. I need you. You are my only hope. It goes even deeper. In verse 5, David says, "I know that I was brought forth in iniquity. I was born into this world as a sinner, born from a sinner. Sin has been a part of who I am. It's a part of my life from the very first breath I take." That's true of every single one of us in this fallen world. We all have sin. We all have need for the Savior. And that sin is a part of who we are from the very beginning of our lives. It shows us a reminder of how beautiful Easter truly is. We need to be forgiven. We have more sin than we could possibly even count or imagine. There's sin in our life from the very beginning. And our only hope is if God himself, the one against whom we have sinned, does for us what we could never do for ourselves. As we prepare our hearts for Easter, think about the incredible gift of forgiveness that is offered to you through Jesus Christ. As you think about the awareness you may have of your sin, be reminded that there's sin that goes so far back in your life that you couldn't even think of it if you tried. And then see that the celebration of Easter reminds us Jesus Christ came to die for that sin, to take the wrath that sin deserves, and to invite you to be right with God forevermore in the power of his resurrection.